Testing house show after Darko. Are familiar faces, worn out places, worn out faces. Bright and early for the daily races, going nowhere, going nowhere. I don't know, man. Have you been listening to the soundtrack all weekend like I have?
No, I have not. I've been watching more explainer videos than listening to the soundtrack. I am a fan of the soundtrack.
This is just incredible that this movie somehow existed before deep dives, and it is like deep dive 101 that is required for this movie. But I have a bunch of theories about this, stuff that you and I haven't even talked about yet.
Oh, good.
Like literally, I'm just driving down the road. I'm like, but wait, what if? And then then my brain just goes. But told you I was pretty happy the last drive-in. I feel like this was like so mainstream and like so readily available. Like there's some movies they pick that we love that are fantastic, but this movie is like, this is a really, really fresh piece of bait to get AMC to be like, okay, like I told you, I feel like it moved the needle. Like this is beyond
it pulled in another viewer. You saw it live.
Yeah, I did. The drive-in mutants will always be there, like the wrestling fans, but this was just like, as soon as he said it, my whole mind shifted of just like, wait, they're showing Donnie Darko? It just like shifted everything for me. And it's probably one of my favorite episodes we've watched in a long, long time.
That was a good episode. I mean, this season has been really good, I gotta say.
Yeah. Like, so we were pretty nervous. You know, it's just losing that double feature, having it board. Basically, you don't lose the double feature. It's a kind of a DIY double feature.
I mean, they still have a great feature that comes on after. I've noticed the programming's good, but you know, maybe they should get a junior host, the late show.
Yeah, that's a great idea, right?
Yeah.
Get Spenguli. Let's bring him. Let's bring him back. I mean, he's still floating around, right? He was a guest one time. Just bring him in as the Late Show.
We're live.
All right,
now.
there we are, vertically.
Yeah.
With young Jake Gyllenhaal right over our head.
This is Dalton. We never thought Donnie Darko would be Dalton as well?
I know. This movie was double Daltons. We had both Daltons in here.
Yeah, it was double Daltons.
I was like, how is this stuff? I think seeing young Jake Gyllenhaal, to me, was a little even more disturbing than Frank the Rabbit.
Yeah.
I just, like, my brain was just, like, not ready to be reminded of how young he was in this movie. I guess he was 18 playing 16.
That's right.
Right?
And his sister was only a year older, or two.
Yeah. Maggie, it was and it made it so easy to have that, like, sibling rivalry that was right there. But I got to tell you, man, like, there's a couple movies that stick out in my head, and I can only think of two right now that the first time I saw it, I don't want to say I hated it. It's a strong word. But I walked out like, what the hell was that? Not necessarily liking it. The first one was Reservoir Dogs. And that's a whole nother show. You saw
Reservoir Dogs at the theater?
No, I saw that as a Blockbuster Video employee recommendation.
Gotcha.
And and the earshot, just like prisoner number 628-462 said, like, that's going to turn people off. And it hit me that time my mind was not ready for that, and it turned me off. And then I just watched it over and over and over again, and I'm healed of that. I've seen the light. But the second one was this one, and actually just experienced that, because I think I saw this in the theater, and it was the first and only time I saw it. And I was triggered, and I didn't say, I was just like, what did we just watch? Now, granted, this was a month after 9/11.
That's right.
And the plane thing got me. It did. It got me. And I was like, my brain, my mind wasn't ready for it. And then this past Friday, I watched it, and I had the moment that David Lynch talked about in one of his directing / inspiration video. He's like, you can have a golf ball size consciousness, and you're only going to be able to fill that up with so much. And then you're going to experience life, and then you're going to go do things, and slowly you're going to evolve, and your consciousness is going to get bigger, and then you're going to have a softball. And then you're going to go back and consume the same content, whether it's a book or a movie, a film, a song, anything. And you're going to get something completely different out of it, because now you have more room. And that's exactly what happened with this movie. This movie was so ahead of its time. Like, people, that's like a cliche, right? Movies are ahead of its time. This was like way, way ahead of its time. But also, I don't think it's a coincidence that this movie came out a month after 9/11. I don't think that's a coincidence, pal.
What do you mean by that? You think Al Qaeda had something to do with it?
No. I just think that in this timeline, in this simulation, in this multiverse, whatever you want to call it, that was one of the most pivotal forks in the road of our lifetime. I mean, I don't know if you even want to say it was a splinter where something happens and doesn't happen at the same time. And I think this was like something that we needed to experience right at the fork of the road. Like, it needed to be, like, look, if somebody's like sound asleep, you need some kind of jolt to get them out of it. Whether it's cold water, and they called it a kick. Didn't Leonardo call it a kick?
A kick.
What's up, girl? Yeah. you know, when he was in the dream, right? And it's just like you needed a kick to get out of it. I think that was a kick for the entire world. What's up, Grow Not Show? Exactly. I mean, this is just a perspective. This I can't stop thinking about this movie that I wasn't ready for it, and now you see multiverse anywhere, and it's almost kind of thrown around, right? Like science and spirituality, like religion is kind of going in a different direction of the science and spirituality, and now we're used to hearing like multiverse, you know, like the show Dark Matter on Apple Plus, where it's just your thoughts are literally controlling what you're about to experience. And man, that was just, I didn't realize how big of a kick Donnie Darko was for us until the last drive-in last Friday.
Yeah. No, I mean, I totally agree with you. And I think that sometimes, like you said, not enjoying the movie when you first saw it, sometimes when something is so new and innovative, your first instinct is like, I didn't understand it, so you dislike it, you know? And I think, as I've gotten like kind of older and more like been consuming more films and just gotten more curious about them. Usually when I see something that I don't understand, now it like pulls me in more, and I'm like, wait, start the tape again. Let me see what's going on. You know what I mean? Because I just think if you don't understand it, it's presenting something new. So you got to take some time to wrap your head around it. You know, I felt the same way about Pulp Fiction the first time I saw it.
That was another one. That I don't think our minds were necessarily ready for. But it's fascinating. I mean, what Abraham Lincoln called, you know, what he called the Council of Enemy, or his Chamber of Enemies. Like he would hire people, he'd book people to be in his cabinet that he didn't necessarily agree with, because he needed this like different perspective. He didn't need to be spoon-fed the perspective he already understood. And that happens a lot in films, right? In Hollywood, you get like super comfortable, and then just like you get spoon-fed this stuff. But man, this was the first one that I feel like it was before, even if there's even like a 2 ticks to the right of before its time, it was 2 ticks before it was ready to go. I think it just changed everything. But even just like the performances, I mean, we can study this in two different aspects, right? You can study this as the film, right? You know, the shots, the soundtrack, which is just phenomenal, that it just kind of took you to the moment. The special effects that kind of felt like you were watching, you know, I was trying to remember if this was before Jim Cameron's floating water wiggles. Oh, it was after, right?
It was after, yeah, because I remember people saying that was the same effect.
After The Abyss, right? It was after Abyss and after T2.
Yeah.
But it made sense. Like, back then I didn't even realize that, he's trying to just kind of show those were the blinking arrows of like what direction your destiny is pulling you in, that you have to perform all this stuff. Like, and you watched the director's cut pretty quick after this. Did you get a deeper dive?
Yeah, the director's cut is by and large a much better movie. It's interesting that they chopped it up like that, because everything they took out helps to explain the stuff you don't understand. Now, I don't know. To me, it made it a better experience. You know, you've got excerpts from the book, The Philosophy of Time Travel, which we can pull up, and we can pull these up and read the chapters. They're very short, or at least like the ones they put up on during the film. It just makes a lot more sense. And there's just little interactions that were cut. One that I found really interesting was like there was an interaction between Donnie and his dad, you know, as we're getting towards the end of the movie, and you know, Donnie's kind of spiraling or whatever, and the end of the world's getting closer, and they have a real sort of intimate moment where he tells him that he loves him, and it's like, look, Donnie, you know, you're just you're not a fuck up. You're a unique guy, and people don't understand unique guys. It's just really good, and just lots of small things thrown in there that really made it a better experience. I can't recommend it enough.
Do you think that, I mean, we weren't ready for it, so it's safe to say that, you know, Hollywood wasn't ready for it, the producers weren't ready, maybe the editor wasn't ready for it, right? Maybe they cut too many, you know, they took to heart too many notes.
I
Because
think, yeah. Well, I mean, given since it, bombed at Sundance or whatever, according to legend, I imagine. I don't know. I wanted to find out what cut they played at Sundance. I imagine it was that original cut. But when something like that happens, the first reaction is to cut it shorter. Yeah, it really doesn't give you a lot of on the nose kind of explanations. Things are there.
No.
But the director's cut definitely gives you more to understand. What's up, JJ?
no one was ready for Oscar, just like no one's ready for Donnie Darko. Yeah, I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't expecting and was ready for it this second time, but not that first time. What did you think do you think that on the nose would have helped it more back then, or you think it would have hurt it more back then?
I imagine that this is one of those things that when you read it, it made a lot more sense on the page. Trying to translate some of that visually probably didn't come across at the time. And again, it didn't help that, 9/11 being a huge moment in history, folks were confused. Folks didn't know what was going on. No one was looking for a confusing, slow-paced movie that's sort of like musings on death and time travel.
Yeah.
And then a plane falling out of the sky, possibly.
Dude, this movie came out, and I was still living up north back then, and this movie was coming out when there was still basically a hue in the sky, around, that you see the whole tri-state area. The closer you got to the city, there was still that hue that was in the sky. Like, this stuff, reverberated through time. Like in our timeline, in real life, that 9/11 moment was just such a big kick, like an inception. But I think that it was probably the safer play, honestly, in the long run, to not be right on the nose. I think it worked better because it's kind of like the whole. You ever hear the story about the caterpillar in the cocoon?
Tell me.
So the caterpillar in the cocoon, where you got this caterpillar and somebody was just watching this caterpillar fighting, sweating, struggling, just like, I need to get out of this cocoon. And it was just like, it was suffering so much. And then finally it got out of the cocoon, it sprouted its wings, turned into a butterfly, and then flew away. So, but this person was watching that, and it was just like, man, that poor caterpillar, he just busted his ass to get out of there. So he saw another caterpillar, and it just he came out and was like, you know what, I'm going to help you out. So he just sliced open that cocoon, and the caterpillar just fell out and died, just dropped dead. And then you realize that caterpillar needed that struggle to sprout the wings properly.
Mm-hmm.
It couldn't be right on the nose. It's like the whole living this life, you have to go through these struggles, and you have to figure out the puzzle. Dude, even Rick and Morty, man, it's just I don't think Rick and Morty would have gotten over back then like it does get over now, because it's just it almost makes light of the same thing, because Donnie Darko just touched on one tangent universe, one, okay, he made the choice, he was in the house when the plane engine fell on him, and he wasn't in the house. The whole Schrodinger's cat, both things happened, and then he splintered off, and then we experienced he wasn't in the house. But then all this stuff went wonky.
But why wasn't he in the house? Because Frank pulled him out of the house.
Frank pulled him out of the house. Why did Frank pull him out of the house? Did he need to experience Yang to appreciate Yang?
So there's here's let me I'm going to go through these as we continue the conversation, because I think these are important. And not having seen the director's cut, I think these add a lot. There's chapter breaks within the movie, right? And you get chapter 1. I forgot. I don't know what point of the movie it comes through, but chapter 1, the tangent universe. And this is what we get. The primary universe is fraught with great peril. War, plague, famine, and natural disasters are common. Death comes to us all. The fourth dimension of time is a stable construct, though it is not impenetrable. Incidents when the fabric of the fourth dimension become corrupted are incredibly rare. If a tangent universe occurs, it will be highly unstable, sustaining itself for no longer than a few weeks. Eventually, it will collapse upon itself, forthcoming a black hole within the primary universe capable of destroying all of existence.
Wow. That's in the director's cut?
Yeah.
And that came from the book The Philosophy of Time?
Basically, the director's cut has chapter breaks like a Tarantino movie. And you get a page from the book each time. Okay?
So a little more on the nose.
Yeah, it's giving you the construct of what's going on. It doesn't really lay it out for you, but we're not just in the dark on everything. Chapter 2 is called Water and Metal. Water and metal are the key elements of time travel. Water is the barrier element for the construction of time portals used as gateways between universes and the tangent vortex. Metal is the transitional element for the construction of artifact vessels. Metal being the jet plane engine.
Right.
And water, I think it has something to do with Donnie flooding the school.
Right.
Because water and metal are the elements that create time travel portals. And I think what it's getting at is it's almost as if everything that is set in motion, the events of the movie, once he floods the school, that's when things start to take effect. That's when things start to fall into place.
Oh, okay. But he was still unconscious of what he was doing, right? He was being guided to basically do what needed to be done, but he didn't know why he was doing it, right? Or was he slowly blooming open to that idea of what he was doing? That he had to hit all these marks?
Well, let me skip to chapter 10. Chapter 10 is called The Manipulated Dead. Okay? So there's two characters in this movie who could be outlined or known as the manipulated dead. There's two people that die, right? We have Frank and what is it, Gretchen, the girlfriend's name. Was that her name?
Gretchen, yep.
So chapter 10, The Manipulated Dead. The manipulated dead are more powerful than the living receiver. Living receiver would be Donnie. If a person dies within the tangent dimension, they are able to contact the living receiver through the fourth dimensional construct. The fourth dimensional construct is made of water. The manipulated dead will manipulate the living receiver using the fourth dimensional construct. The manipulated dead will often set an assurance trap for the living receiver to ensure that the artifact is returned safely to the primary universe. If the assurance trap is successful, the living receiver is left with no choice but to use his fourth dimensional power to send the artifact back into the primary universe before the black hole collapses upon itself.
So you know what's fascinating about that? I mean, just like I think that Frank really wasn't a heel. Frank wasn't the bad guy, right? Frank was the manipulated. Once he was dead, he was doing what he needed to do to kind of manipulate Donnie into being the living receiver to hit his marks to save existence.
Right. Exactly.
Everybody thinks Evil Rabbit, but I was like, he saved everything.
Right. He saved everything by setting everything in motion, by pulling Donnie out of the house when the jet engine fell, so that could start the tangent universe that could reverse what was going to happen. Anyway, there's a lot going on.
Dude, before you go off the water track, I mean, there's two things, right? We know that water in real life, whatever you want to say, is a conductor of electricity, right? If you spill water on a circuit, it now becomes part of that circuit, and it can go to places that it couldn't go following the regular circuit, right? You're going to take it, you can jump out of it. There's also some doctors that have done some studies. I think Dr. Emoto, which the name almost sounds like a work, but he has been doing studies on water, how water not only absorbs electricity, energy is electricity. Like, your emotions like are pushing out of your heart are energy almost like in another dimension, like another level, and how it's absorbing water. So it's fascinating that, back in 2001, before this doctor probably even was doing this studies, they found a way that water, it's almost like somebody spilled a glass of water between the primary universe and the tangent universe and created a circuit that can get Frank over there to start opening the lines of communication with the living receiver, which is Donnie.
Right.
That's wild. That's dude, and it's like it's 2024 and we're clicking with this, but like I'd love to talk to somebody who clicked for in 2001, because
There
then
can't be many people. I gotta say,
right?
No, especially missing. What's up, Cheap Shot Gator?
Keep Shot Gator, yeah,
Come
I
on.
love it.
Love it. Yeah, I mean,
Cesar says bullseye, right? It's just
yeah.
like, so that means if that person was basically open to this type of communication and information in 2001, where are their consciousness now in 2024? Like they're gonna be like, oh, now that was like probably you're just learning one plus one. Now let me show you E equals MC squared, right?
Yeah. I just think that had this information been in the original cut, I don't think it gives you all the answers, but it lays out more pieces for you to try to comprehend. I don't think you can comprehend, like, you can't comprehend this without this information, And I think
No.
Donnie Dark, it was a cult classic. It was a little bit of a stoner movie for a while. I think that's what really got it over. But I think once the director's cut came out, and you got this extra information that it's explained the philosophy of time travel and how it applies to the story, it's just like, oh, you can really put these pieces together, And not to say I put these pieces together by myself. Okay, I watched dozens of other videos that deep dove into it, and sort of like
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
and then just sort of got pieces from each of them.
Yeah, and again, this was before YouTube. Like who was doing deep dives back then, where you're just like kind of, just meeting in like some kind of like chat room over 56K modems. I don't know. Osama, Cesar, Cheap Shot Gator. If you know anybody that was like getting this movie in 2001, I would love to hear it. Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah, this mic. Sorry about that. Mortal and fragile. This mic. We're remote. I'm remote today, so my mic is a little jacked. Let me turn it down.
I took you down. I got it.
Okay, cool. Sorry about that. Yeah, but it's just, let's jump back into the book, right? So let's talk about what was her name? What was her? So Roberta Sparrow. What was it? She was Grandma Death. Philosophy of Time Travel. So you can actually download this book, right? But like this book was not a actual book, but then it became an actual book.
No, I don't think it became an actual book. It just the portions of it that they wrote for the movie are available.
So you can kind of download that as like a PDF.
Here, let me ping you. I'll ping you this right now so you can kind of look at what I'm looking at. But no, it's not an actual book. It was created just for the movie, but the bits of it that do exist now are available.
Okay. What in the director's cut, did they say what she whispered in his ear at the end?
Yeah, every living creature dies alone. But he says that, I think, in both movies.
Oh, so I don't remember hearing that in the
maybe it's not. I could, but I know that's what he says.
So what was fascinating like about her,
Censor that.
Okay, cool.
What was fascinating?
What does the book say about her? Because we knew Frank the Rabbit and Gretchen, right? They were the manipulated dead, right? But she was in on this the entire time, right? She was in on the work. She kept checking the mailbox, right? Because she knew it was coming. And
right.
But she was just like getting ahead of her time. Does the book get into anything on what they're going to say about her?
Well, I mean, she wrote the book, but she wrote the book from her because she was a living receiver as well from another tangent universe. That's how she got this knowledge.
Wait, she was another
That's
living receiver?
that's how she learned. That's what I got from it. She was the original living receiver in another from another tangent universe in a whole other adventure. So maybe there's a whole other Grandma Death, Donnie Darko prequel somewhere that we haven't seen yet.
Oh wow. Yeah, because you knew she was in on it, and you knew she was kind of like, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Some people would call it, guardian angel, living receiver, whatever you want to call it. You knew she was in on, but she was still so. I've heard this theory that, in real life, that some people believe that there's certain levels of people who are actually schizophrenic that you really can't prove that they're not talking to somebody in a different dimension. I know that, and that sounds wild, right? That's controversial, wild, but like, how do you prove that? Like, how do you prove that they are not actually talking to somebody? Like, they don't see somebody, right? Because we're just like, a radio frequency, right? You're picking up a radio station, you flip the channel, you hear a completely different song that you're dancing to, that you're singing along to. And it just was a flick of the wrist to change that. But when for everybody else who's hearing hearing the same thing, you would think that there's something, like they're mad, like they're out of their mind. And in a way, they are compared to what you're doing, but that doesn't mean they're crazy, right?
You're losing me. I'm not sure.
Well, it's just like, because if you looked at her, she was just like, she was in her own world, right? She just kept checking. She was like, oh man, she was just like, she had one job, and she was not going to mess up that job. She was not going to mess up that job, and she was like ready for it. Like, she wasn't playing coy of just like, oh, you wait. Like, she was just like, okay, is it time yet? Is it time yet? Is it time yet? Is it time yet? But to everybody else, they're like, look at her, she's just doing her thing again. But she was sound. She had a job. Another thing that's kind of wild on this, and this kind of getting this in 2024, like if you talk about, Marvel movies and this latest saga, like the multiverse saga, like they've kind of trained us for this, right? Like now, if people who would watch Marvel movies that watch this, like, oh, you're talking about an incursion where something or somebody is out of place, and we're about to see this in Deadpool and Wolverine, right? But we watch this in Loki. Something, or usually somebody, is out of place, and they shouldn't be there, and then they have a whole council of people that will prune that person to make sure that they don't do something that's going to create what they would call a tangent universe. I don't know what they just call it a branch timeline, but they're like, you can't exist because then these two can collide and destroy everything. I mean, Donnie Darko was doing this in 2001, where the only Marvel movies we even knew about was like X-Men Part 1 in 2000 and Blade in 98, and before that you had Superman 2, completely even different dimension. Oh no, that was even Spidey was 2001. But yeah, my point being is just like Marvel's just catching up to this now, but David Kelly was doing this in 2001. Does that mean more brains are open to this type of storytelling?
Well, I mean, the way you explained it makes the way Marvel does it. It's pretty laid out very clearly for pretty much anyone to understand it. So much so that they go out of their way to explain to the audience exactly what's going on in a scene, where they all basically say it directly to camera. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This movie wasn't trying to do that. It was sort of exploring the idea of a multiverse without like you said, it hadn't been established as a movie gimmick yet. No, not at all. What did we have before that? Quantum Leap with Sam Beckett. Well, that wasn't a universe. That was just time travel. You could time travel within your own timeline.
In the same timeline, he wasn't even jumping to other timelines yet. This was the first one that it really just focused on one other time. Are you watching Dark Matter on Apple Plus?
No, I haven't seen that.
Oh man, Dark Matter is getting exactly into this where this guy, he, this scientist, he creates a box and you go into this box and it creates a superposition where you just go, you take this drug so your mind is altered and ready to do it, and it just is, it's an infinite hallway going in many directions of like anything that can happen will happen, and there's just nothing but doors. And when you open that door, what you're going to see behind that door is determined by what you expect to see, kind of like you do when you're dreaming, right? Talked about you this before, just like, in a dream, if you think there's someone behind the door, it happens immediately. It's going to be, it creates that, but he's created that in this box. The same time that it's just like, and dude, the first time I saw this was just like a week before Donnie Darko, which just basically did the exact same thing, except they just focused on one door that got open, which was this airplane jet engine that falls out of the sky into his house.
Right.
Do you think, what do you, like, I read, when we were starting doing the deep dives, like, Jake Gyllenhaal was just like, I don't think I even fully understand what this movie was about, like what the script was about. They just knew it was something special. Did you see that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that everybody. I mean, it was like they said, it was one of those scripts everybody read, but nobody wanted to make.
But everybody liked it enough that they just kept passing it on, but like didn't fully understand it. But Drew Barrymore, she must have understood it some way. She was just like, yo, I don't want to be doing like, Poison Ivy and like Skinamax. I want to change the direction of like my career.
Yeah.
Even though she had just done Scream, what, 2 years earlier, so she already started, changing things up a little bit, but she clearly knew something, right? She had to, or do you think she didn't know what she didn't know?
I mean, it was 2001, which is still basically late 90s. So they were still in that indie new wave, and people were looking for that. People were looking to make different kinds of films, and get away from typical commercial content. Someone was going to take a chance on it eventually. It just seemed to me, The thing about it, though, is I feel like this is a really well-directed movie, but I have to wonder what this film would have been had another director taken this on. I feel like Richard Kelly's clearly a great writer. I think as a director, it's debatable how great of a director he is, I did like Southland Tales, but I would say it's a lesser film than this. And then The Box was really bad.
Wait, what was The Box?
He did a movie called The Box. It was based on that Twilight Zone episode.
Was it Cameron Diaz and Cyclops?
Yes. And it was based on that Twilight Zone episode where the couple gets a box with a button. If they push the button, they get $1 million, but somebody will die.
Oh, cause and effect.
Yeah, and so
I feel like that was an attempt at being mainstream, though, right? Because I felt like that was a mainstream release.
I think it was. It was definitely a swing at that. And I just don't think Richard Kelly's a mainstream filmmaker. I think he's got a bit of a Charlie Kaufman kind of quality, where I think it would have been great to see his scripts executed by someone else, interpreted through the eyes of another filmmaker. I feel like the way about a lot of great writers.
But he also, kind of like Sylvester Stallone, there was no way he was not going to be attached to this, right?
Yeah.
He wasn't going to let it go.
Yeah.
I mean, I see what you're saying. I see why he did it too. I see both, right? Because sometimes it works, though. Look at what, Stephen King hates what Kubrick did with The Shining, but man, it stands head and shoulders as its own thing, just as much as the book stands head and shoulders as its own thing, and they almost exist parallel and together at the same time.
Yeah.
But like do you think you can pick a director for hire that can get this, or do you have to get somebody I would love to see, JJ brought this up earlier. I'd love to see David Lynch take a crack at this.
I think David Lynch, maybe. I mean, I would like seeing somebody with a little more commercial sensibility. I think to bring in that feel to this type of a script. Like I always think of True Romance, right? I feel like True Romance is one of Tarantino's one of his best films because it was directed by Tony Scott, you know. And when that first Tarantino wave hit and everybody was trying to imitate it, a lot of folks were doing True Romance, not Pulp Fiction. You know, Pulp Fiction in itself was so unique that it was hard to imitate. But True Romance was an interpretation of Tarantino material, right? Which was more accessible by other directors. And I think that's where they kind of went and they kind of copied that vibe. I think it would have been interesting to see somebody else take this and say, okay, you know, as the writer, you know what's going on. You have all the insight. As a director trying to interpret the idea, I think it would have been interesting to see someone say, okay, here, this is how I understand this as you're doing it. Let me add my little spin, and maybe it would have been a little more accessible to the audience. That's another tangent universe. It's never going to happen, and it didn't happen. But
dude, it's funny you say that. It's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah,
there is a universe where that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, and it was a huge hit. It was a huge commercial hit. Now there's like 6 Donnie Darkos, and they're rebooting it right now with Tom Holland. But one thing that you got to remember about Grandma Death, whatever's going on with her, she's in some kind of time loop. But you realize that her role in the tangent universe or whatever's going on is she had to write the book so Donnie could get it.
Yes.
So that Donnie could understand what was going on.
And again, I guess that kind of gets into, you know, and I think they talked about this. Well, I don't know. They talked about it on Joe Bob. I don't know where else I've heard this, right? That when you come from a perspective of like everything's happening at the same time, you know, you see everything happening at the same time. Was she one of those people that saw everything happening at the same time and realized, okay, I gotta write this book and it's gotta be released right at this moment, and then it's gotta get in his hands right at this time, because you can't get that book in his hand too early, and you can't get that book in his hand too late. But then if it's already happened, then you know I feel like Bill and Ted. Wait a minute, what if I forget to put my keys? Oh wait, I didn't forget to put my keys. My keys are right here. So like, could she fail? Could she fail in her quest of like writing this book and not handing it to him?
Well, she didn't hand it to him.
No, or getting it in his hands.
Yeah, I mean, it was just for her. It was just for her to write. It got through his hand. His teacher gave it to him.
No, the Noah Wild teacher character, right?
Right.
Which was another one, dude. Let's go and talk about him.
I mean, I think just to follow up there, I think that it was part of her time loop destiny to write the book, so the next living receiver or any other living receivers that came through could get it. I don't think she knew who it was going to be or that it was Donnie or at all. She just knew there would be another one, so she had to write the book.
So she wasn't an observer that saw all things. She was. She had one job. As Rick and Morty would go, Rick, you got one job. You pass butter. That's all you pass butter. That's all you do. That's your one job. You think so? You're thinking with her, that was just her only job.
This is the foreword on her book. The intent of this short book is for it to be used as a simple and direct guide in a time of great danger. I pray that this is merely a work of fiction. If it is not, then I pray for you, the reader of this book. If I am still alive when the events foretold in these pages occur, then I hope that you will find me before it's too late.
That was a forward in the book?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that's great.
I'm telling you, it's like it adds so much more to have the book chapter titles in there. And because they don't make sense in the context as you're watching, but when you revisit it, it makes a lot more sense.
Man, that's great. I had no idea. Yeah, so if you read that, then it does sound like she just had her one job and she just did it. Kind of like his teacher just had that one job. Because did you notice like his body language, like everything about him changed, but he gave a pretty generical answer when he was just like, I don't think we can continue this conversation anymore. Like I'm gonna lose my job if he did it. But it just seemed like at that point, this whatever was at play here, this like metaphysical, universal, multiversal game of chess, said that one can't go any further. Like I feel like that happened with so many characters, but that one, it was the most evident.
Yeah.
Because it's just like you feel like the teacher could have gone, like almost like he knew more, but he knew he had to stop.
I didn't get that at all. I kind of
You
got
didn't get
more. I got more that was sort of that was an aspect of the sort of right wing, Christo-fascist sort of vibe at the school. Okay, so it was a Catholic school, and the philosophy of time travel contradicts religion, and that's
Oh,
why I
you're
thought I didn't
right.
want to talk about it.
So then that was, yeah. So then he had to stop
Yeah, because
at that point,
Drew Barrymore gets fired. Remember,
right?
so I think that was more of that angle. That's what I got.
No, that makes sense. I can totally see that. What about Jim Cunningham, the Patrick Swayze character? How does he play into this? Because it completely, he burned everything down and exposed a dirty secret. Is it possible that the Jim Cunningham character, the only reason he turned heel and had that pedo dungeon was because it was a tangent universe, but in the regular universe, he was an okay guy? Is that possible?
No, in the regular universe, no one would ever find out. In the regular,
Really?
that's yeah. In the regular, it's not that he's everything in the tangent universe is not. It's not a variant. It's reality, but it's different choices and different revelations. That's what I got. And if going back to the regular universe, no one's ever going to find out Jim Cunningham is a pervert. Gretchen doesn't die. Several of those things. Spark of Motion probably wins the tournament too.
Spark emotion.
But no, I didn't think. I think that was yeah,
So that was a little bit of a darker twist,
yeah,
right? Because it could be, Donnie did something good in the tangent universe by burning that house and exposing that, but now it didn't burn in that house. So with the butterfly effect, you're saying that still continues to go on and nobody ever finds out.
right,
Well, or that they can prove that they don't find out.
right.
That
Maybe
was the
they
dark.
do it another way, but it's not it's not revealed in this movie or in any way that we're gonna
So,
find out about.
so, he was definitely one of the people, like, everybody at that moment kind of woke up and realized something changed, like something happened, right? That they were affected by Donnie one way or another. And that's what that whole end montage of everybody waking up, like, what the heck just happened? I don't know what happened. Something happened. Do you think the director was trying to say that he was going to change the error? He was going to change? Like, this would have fixed him? Like, that? Did that scare him straight? And maybe I'm just trying to turn Patrick Swayze into a babyface
You just
because
don't
he's
want to
always a
believe. Yeah, you don't want to
I
believe
just
it.
don't. I don't want to believe that Patrick Swayze's a heel. But like, is it possible that he's just like, I need to change?
I don't know, man. Once you got a dungeon in your house, you're all in.
Yeah, the dungeon is a big commitment.
You're
Like,
all
'cause you
in.
gotta, you think about the contractors. Like, okay, the dungeons are done, but what's the dungeon do? Like, what are you gonna do with this dungeon?
Yeah,
Just regular dungeon stuff.
right.
But like, pedo dungeon is like next level dungeon. But yeah, maybe I'm just trying to turn, Sam Wee to babyface
Yeah,
because he looked he looked like distraught though, right?
When he was getting arrested?
No, he looked distraught when he woke up.
Swayze?
Yeah, at the end montage when they all started waking up and realized that Donnie, I think they unconsciously knew that Donnie Jane is about to save reality.
I don't remember the montage of everybody waking up.
It started off with his therapist,
Mm-hmm.
and then they slowly all started just like sitting up in bed. Like, whoa. So I don't know. Again, maybe I'm just looking too much into that, but I feel like, or was it like a near-death experience for them? Like well, it definitely was for Gretchen and for Frank, right? That had to feel like a near-death experience, which usually changes your life perspective when you have that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just curious about the ones that didn't die, if that was some kind of like near-death revelation, like, whoa, okay, I'm doing things different from now on.
Yeah,
No more
I
no
didn't
more
really get
dungeons.
that. I didn't really pick up on that.
Okay.
I'm trying to recall the part you're talking about, but yeah.
It's the very end. It's like right before the engine falls on him. They just
Mm-hmm.
show all the faces, the daughter sneaking in. Yeah, I mean, Maggie Gyllenhaal, she's coming back in. This is all happening, and everybody's popping up, and then he starts laughing, and then it's over, like
Mm-hmm.
boom. But did you see S. Darko? They talked about it a little. I mean, they did have a completely unrelated to this, but it was a sequel.
Well, no, I didn't see that.
No,
But it is a direct sequel. It's the daughter, its sister,
so
Samantha Darko.
Sparkle Motion.
Yeah,
Like, did you? So I don't know,
I
man.
never. Once I saw that it was not done by any of the same people, I had no interest in seeing it.
Yeah, that's a risky business, right? Like, it's not going to be canon. So I don't know about like the fan fiction portion of it, or if it's just like wishful thinking. I don't know, but there's part of me that I want more. I want more Darko,
Watch the director's cut.
and I think that's going to be
You're
the
gonna
first step.
you get way more. I think it's a much better film. Yeah, I was looking at the 4K disc. I might have to throw down for the 4K disc of this one.
Do you feel like when you're watching this movie too, speaking along those lines with the soundtrack? I mean, this was 2001, right? But did it feel like more like an 80s soundtrack, a 90s soundtrack, or at that perfect time, or did they somehow predict that the 80s were going to have like a massive comeback?
I
Like,
mean,
what decade did it feel like?
it felt like the 80s to me. It was set in the 80s.
Right, 1988.
Yeah. So they were using music of the period.
So it was kind of in its own way, even though it came out in 2001, it was a little bit of a period piece, if you count that period as 1988.
Right.
Okay. 80s for sure. JJ agrees on that. Those songs like Love Will Tear Us Apart and Head Over Heels and Mad World always reminded me of Donnie Darko, but those other two songs that I just named, man, it is like drilled into my head now that it's going to bring me back to like all of these characters. I can almost see why there is such an obsessive cult audience for this movie. It's haunting, man. It's just like once it's in your brain and it gets hold. It didn't get a hold the first time, but it got a hold this time. Like I told you, I can't stop thinking about it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that they really those songs target sort of specific feelings of isolation and loneliness, and that's like that's a big theme in this movie, right? Donnie feeling out of place in his suburban wasteland, Republican suburban wasteland. It's funny that the first line in this movie, like 5 or 6 minutes into the movie, the very first line is "I'm voting for Dukakis," and that puts you right. It puts you exactly in the time period where this is going on.
Oh yeah, they know he did a great job of like nailing, making you feel that.
And I think a lot of this is drawn out of Richard Kelly growing up in this type of an environment, right? Being a depressed emo kid in a right wing suburban neighborhood, you know, wanting to escape, feeling out of place. And I think that's what those songs really channel. Was it the Smiths and Tears for Fears?
Smiths, yep, Tears for Fears, the Smiths, Echo and the Bunnymen. What we touched on this a little bit of just like I don't believe Frank the Rabbit is a heel in this. Like the more you wrap your head around this movie,
Do you know who
I
Frank
think
was, though, right?
the actor, I
No, Frank, the character.
oh yeah, yeah, he was one of like he was at the party, right?
He's the sister's boyfriend. He's Maggie Gyllenhaal's boyfriend.
I didn't know that was I didn't pick up that they were a boyfriend. I knew he was just at the party, and he wrote like going for beer, that thing. But like, was he like pre presented like as a bully, right? Wasn't he?
No, he's not a bully at all.
No.
No, he's not really. He's throughout the movie. Maggie Gyllenhaal has a boyfriend who she refers to or talks to on the phone, and it's not till the ending party where you realize it's
It's
Frank.
Frank?
Frank is him. Yes, and
Oh
that's the
man,
connection between Frank and Donnie. That's how he knows who Donnie is. He's not just like a random stranger.
man, I didn't get again. I've just learned something new. I didn't catch that was actually her boyfriend. Do you feel like so everybody kind of looked at Donnie as like a weirdo and like he was becoming more and more isolated from it and looking like the more he focused on the other reality, the more he lost touch with his current reality, which maybe ostracized him with like all of his friends. Like, is is he a protagonist or an antagonist in this movie?
Frank,
No, Donnie.
he's the protagonist, but
He's the hero.
I think I think you're missing something here. If you think about it, the the first scene of the movie, right, is they're arguing at the dinner table. He's like, "Mom, get out of my room! Shut up, Mom! I hate you, bitch! Get out of my
Yeah,
room!" Okay. Then we have the uh, the engine falls. We split into the tangent universe. Now, Donnie's mental state sort of degrades, but that was already there. Okay. If he had mental illness problems or emotional distress, that was already going on. If you notice in this tangent universe, he gets closer to everybody. He doesn't disassociate. He gets closer to his mom, he gets closer to his dad, his sisters, and he gets a girlfriend. So within this tangent universe, he actually becomes happier, finds happiness. But it's not for him to remain there because that's going to be the end of the world if they stays there.
right.
You remember because I remember like
I
the first
I
first
remember
scene of the movie.
the Smurf conversation was a little like
fir-
regular kid having some friends.
First scene of the movie, he calls his mom a bitch. By
Yep.
the end of the act, by the end of Act Two, Tangent Universe, he's feeling bad. He's like, "Mom, what is it like to have a psycho for a son?" And she's like, "I love it." You know what I mean? And like again,
Right.
and if you watch in the director's cut, there's another scene with the dad where he becomes closer with the dad. They have like a conversation. First scene, sister, him and his sister at their throats. By the end of the Tangent Universe, he is like, kissing her forehead and wishing her goodbye and this and that. You know what I mean? It's like he was, and then again, having a girlfriend. He would have never had a girlfriend in the actual physical, the real reality. The Tangent Universe opened him up to new experiences, to new emotional depth, And
That totally makes sense.
it was that. So in that present, like, it's not like it's a story of like his emotional growth. He has an arc there, you know, but he
Huh.
can't stay there because it'll end the world.
But do you feel, and I totally agree with that, and that makes sense. It almost feels like he was at peace that he unconsciously knew the job that he had to do, and he realized that now his life had purpose, and maybe that brought down the walls, and he was able to get closer with everybody because he realized that like I got you guys. But
By the end of it, yeah.
right? Did it feel like his consciousness was floating back and forth between prime reality and tangent reality?
I didn't get that. No,
No,
I
you
think there's a hard cut in the realities. It's that moment. That's why I think Joe Bob even said it. We have almost two intro sequences. You know, we have the intro at the beginning, right? But then after it splits off into the tangent universe, we get that intro sequence at the school. That's all set to music, and cut really cool. So I don't think he was going back and forth. He was definitely in the tangent universe. If anybody, Frank was the one going back and forth.
and that makes sense. But do you think that, I mean, he was still technically doing things that were considered crimes, right? Flooding the school, burning the house down. He had the knife, with the rabbit. But I do, now that you say that, he really only had those moments when he was by himself. The only time he had that shared moment was with the psychiatrist, right? His therapist, when she put him in that trance and had him talking. And then that's when he saw Frank. That's when I started thinking, it was just like, what version of him is she talking to? Like, is she talking to, like, did she get a peek into Tangent Donnie and then he's normally, but for her, that would be Prime, Tangent Donnie would be Prime Donnie.
The thing is,
Right?
Prime Donnie's dead. Prime Donnie died in that instant.
So he is dead.
Yeah.
So maybe was that like a higher level of his consciousness that he started to kind of spill the beans a little bit, like pull the curtain back for his therapist? And that's a question. I don't know.
You mean when he starts admitting to all the crimes?
Yeah.
I mean, he was under hypnosis, so I don't think that's that too far fetched that they would be able to get him to do that. And he was seeing Frank. It's not like he was dreaming of Frank, or it was like going to sleep and seeing Frank. He was seeing him in his awake state. So I think that was pretty much on the ball. I think maybe being hypnotized just sort of like opened up that access while he was there.
That he was, maybe his guard was down. He did seem happy though. You're right. Even at that part, he was kind of happy that he realized that's what he had to do. Like it was a job that, you can say that Donnie Darko in this movie, like not only the protagonist, he's the superhero that's gonna save reality.
Exactly. I
But
mean, they call that out in the movie. Remember, she says, "Your name sounds like a superhero."
yes, you're right. Oh man, I now that you say that, I don't remember it, but that's exactly what it felt like.
Yeah. Like they definitely plant a lot of those seeds early. Now they're not. Again, I feel like some of the ideas they remain vague. Where another director might have been there and said, "Let me make this a little more clear." But this movie became what it became, and it's great. But I
Does
think,
does he
yeah, who knows?
does, does he know something we don't know, and he's slowly releasing this information to help try to? I love when movies kind of creep into real life, very similar to Last Action Hero, and you're like, well, this is kind of happening in real life. You think it's a coincidence that like you can see a movie like this and totally get it, and like I said, and you got dark matter, and you got all these multiverses, you got all these like Neil deGrasse Tyson and Mashayo Kaku that they're all talking about like dark matter and multiple timelines. Do you personally feel like now, like seeing that this feels totally feasible that could be reality?
Do I feel that alternate timelines are reality?
That they can be?
I don't know. I don't know. I
It's
know
def
you do.
it's definitely unknowable for sure.
Yeah, and that's
But
also a big thing in this one about the unknowable. You know, Uh, Donnie is convinced that excuse me, God is unknowable. You can't know whether God is real or not. It's unknowable.
Yeah, and that totally makes sense, man. I used to think about this all a lot, right? It's just like if you're trying to imagine life as like a dream, right? So everything is a dream and you're dreaming it. And then all of a sudden you kind of become lucid to that dream and you want to start to understand that dream. So you want to start doing like tests, right? Like science, the scientific process, you want to test it. But the flaw that you'll always have with that is the tools and instruments that you're using are also tools and instruments that you've dreamed up. They're part of the dream too. These aren't tools and instruments that kind of exist outside the dream. They're also part of the dream. So they're kind of going to tell you exactly what you expect them to tell you because that's how dreams work, right? You're going to get it whatever you believe. So if you're going to take a tape measure and say that's 6 inches, it's going to say 6 inches. Somebody else can take that same tape measure and say no, that's 12 inches, and they're going to see 12 inches. And I feel like that's what was kind of happening here. It's just like Donnie was, whether he realized it or not, and sometimes he did realize it and sometimes he didn't. At least that's what I think. Sometimes he did realize it and sometimes he didn't realize it. He was seeing these things, but he didn't really doubt it. Do you feel like he had any kind of doubt what he was seeing and what he needed to do?
Yeah, because he was being forced to take medication, which he thought was affecting his mental stability. But then the psychologist reveals that they were placebos, and I think that's when he started to realize that it was not, that it was real.
Wait, she said they were placebos?
Yeah.
How did I miss that?
I don't know.
Oh my God.
She tells him. She tells him after he reveals. I think right after he tells her that he burned down the guy's house. She says, "You can stop taking your medication. They're placebos."
What?
Yeah.
This changes everything. This changes everything. I need so. It was. I mean, I was just in such awe of what I was witnessing and watching that. Again, I guess there was going to be parts that I was going to miss, and I missed that.
I mean, it is dense. Again, it's dense, and it doesn't spoon feed you, you know. And I think that's where, I mean, this movie was too dense for the Sundance people. Okay, like it was that out there, but the elements to understand it are in it. It's never been, not presented in that way generally to the viewers, right? And again, not that I understood it, not that I could have even understood all this on my own. This is like after just watching and reading a lot of people's different perspectives that you start to see the pieces come together.
Yeah.
And I think one thing I saw, one reviewer said that this was essentially an anti-suicide movie. This was this yeah, this is like this is an anti-suicide movie, saying, which I can't say that on YouTube, can I? This is an anti-unaliving movie.
Yes.
Because Donnie was depressed and mentally ill from the beginning, right? I don't really know how to explain this now that I think about it, but it made sense when I heard it. He, by not dying when the engine fell on him, like I said, he went on to have closer relationships with other people, right? And it wasn't till, and it was like because of that that he kind of grew and like realized that, you know, he couldn't stay there. It was going to end the world, whatever. But when he's gone, at the end, when we're back in Universe Prime, it's like everyone everyone misses him. You know what I mean? It's like it's not like nobody loved him there. You know, he was a part of something. He was already that. He was destined to have he had those loving relationships with these people already, you know, even without going into the tangent universe to really experience them.
Yeah. No, and that makes sense. Like, yeah, I can see them. I can see the message being that everybody has worth, even if you don't know what that worth is yourself. everybody has a purpose, even though you might not even realize what that purpose is. So
Yep.
I can see that being an anti-unalive message of like getting that. I could totally see that. Oh, and that got me thinking again on something else that I was gonna ask you about on that. Was there this beginning? So the plane engine coming into this timeline, was it an like was it a true accident? Like, you talk about like cause and effect and like, well, this had to happen because then if that happens, then this was did the director's cut clearly say that there was something that wasn't supposed to happen, and that's why Frank made Donnie sleepwalk and get out of the way of that engine to start the repair process? Was that an actual accident, or is that destiny?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that.
So it wasn't clear in the director's cut either.
I'm not sure that that made that any clearer. Because the actual, going back to the jet engine is, the jet engine is, the artifact, right? So if you go to chapter 4 of the philosophy of time travel, chapter 4 is the artifact and the living. It says, when a tangent universe occurs, those living nearest to the vortex will find themselves at the epicenter of a dangerous new world. Artifacts provide the first sign that a tangent universe has occurred. If an artifact occurs, the living will retrieve it with great interest and curiosity, which happens. Artifacts are formed from metal, such as an arrowhead from an ancient Mayan civilization or a metal sword from medieval Europe. Artifacts returned to the primary universe are often linked to religious iconography, as their appearance on Earth seems to defy logical explanation. Divine intervention is deemed the only logical conclusion for the appearance of the artifact. So they don't know where, in the tangent universe, we find out they don't know where it came from. And I think that in Universe Prime, they also would not know where it came from. And and that seems implausible, but it's less implausible when you think that in our reality Prime, we've had airplanes completely disappear.
Yeah, we have.
Right?
Yes. Oh man.
So I don't know that they would have identified where the engine came from either way. And, and probably because it came from another dimension, because it's sort of like it's the looper of the tangent universe. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It comes and then it comes, rips open the tangent universe, but then pulling it back in place sort of like closes the loop. So I think you go back to Universe Prime, there's probably, conspiracy specials all about the jet engine that fell from nowhere.
Because yeah, that still happens.
Yeah.
So that's what I was trying, and I know maybe that's what he was talking about was unknowable if you realize that this was going to
But we
happen.
we know where it came from, but nobody in Universe Prime knows where it came from.
Right.
Because it came from the plane that was carrying Sparkle Motion.
Then that makes sense.
At the end of the movie, we see the Sparkle Motion plane, and they hit a bunch of turbulence, and you see that something's going on there, and we see the engine fall out of the sky. So Donnie, and that's the thing is, they don't really. I think Donnie is supposed to have these superpowers, but they don't show them ever, right? Donnie is the one who can. He's supposed to be able to conjure fire and water, and has telekinesis. Okay, now this is according to the. This is not something I discovered. This is according to the Philosophy of Time Travel book.
That one of the powers of his character. I mean, of the what do they call him?
The living receiver.
Living receiver. Yeah.
So he pulls the engine off of the Sparkle Motion plane, sending it through the vortex back in time to day one of Universe Prime.
So, Tangent Universe kind of just folds up and is no longer a danger. So
because they Back to the Future it.
right, so his sister and his mom are never in really danger because that's Tangent sister and Tangent mom that plane, and then that all of a sudden ceased to exist. So the only thing left that's from that is the jet engine. So the mom and the sister were never on that plane in primary universe.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So with the living receiver, do you think that all of these things had to happen to make him make this free, now I'm getting into free will versus, you know, predetermination, predestined versus free will. Do you think all these things had to happen to make Donnie be like, you know what? I don't want to be here anymore anyway. I just shot somebody. She's dead. My sister, everything's bad. I have to make this choice and sacrifice myself for the greater good. It has to be his choice, right?
Let me read you this. Chapter 6, The Living Receiver, from the Philosophy of Time Travel. The living receiver is chosen to guide the artifact into position for its journey back to the primary universe. No one knows how or why a receiver will be chosen. The living receiver is often blessed with fourth dimensional powers. These include increased strength, telekinesis, mind control, and the ability to conjure fire and water. The living
Wow.
receiver is often tormented by terrifying dreams, visions, and auditory hallucinations during his time within the tangent universe. These surrounding the living receiver, known as the manipulated, will fear him and try to destroy him.
Wow. That's incredible. That changes everything, knowing that portion of it. It really does change everything.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it would have changed everything by reading that first and watching the movie.
No, it's only when you're looking back at it. You know?
This is one of those movies that you almost, and Joe Bob, being the genius that he is, that he realizes you have to watch this first and then go back and do the deep dives and do the digs and then go back and watch the director's cut, because he was like, this is regular school, and then you go back and you get a PhD by watching it again. This is really brilliant that this movie is one of our favorite types of movies that requires multiple viewings to like truly grasp it. Because
Right.
you're telling me stuff here, and like I didn't even watch the director's cut, but just by you watching the director's cut and reading that, it's just like you're presenting me all these new puzzle pieces that are be like, oh, like you're so many aha moments.
Yeah, when you sit down and you watch it, you're going to enjoy it a lot more. Since you've already got some of those pieces going in, it just makes sense, and it's definitely an enjoyable experience. You know what's funny is like this. Even they said this tanked at Sundance, but it was nominated for the Grand Jury Prize, and at Stegis it won Best Film. So it's like, don't know, you just don't know.
Yeah. Again, I would still love to meet somebody that got this in 2001, like saw it and got it, and then they're still with us, because where are their levels of consciousness now to grasp all that back then when you didn't have YouTube and internet and deep dives. Like this is all stuff that you just had to get, I don't know, divine intervention and tape swaps.
It's wild we haven't heard from him in a while. I mean, you would think this would have been enough to keep him working, for the rest of his life. But he did. Let's see. He directed Donnie Darko, Southam Tales, and The Box, and that's it. That was 2009, and that was the last we heard of him.
That was it, really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I had no,
He
I
had
had no
he had
idea.
he had one other writing job. He wrote Domino, which was directed by Tony Scott. But yeah, where'd he go? Where Richard Kelly? Where did he go?
Said that after the release of the box, he said he was working on a thriller set in Manhattan in the year 2014, hoping to shoot that movie in 3D, and part of the world would be filmed using CGI motion capture. And
Yeah,
then he announced he was going to be writing and directing Corpus Christi, a Texas set film produced by Eli Roth, and then it was canceled due to financial issues.
interesting.
And then he was going to direct a true crime thriller called Amicus that was starring James Gandolfini until he unfortunately passed and then did not. Then it didn't happen. I had to relinquish when I was 24 years old the rights to Donnie Darko. I hate when people ask me about that because I've never seen, nor I never will see, the sequel. So please don't ask me about it. Which I totally get. I mean, although I still want to watch it, but like that is just like my need for more. Oh, wait, this. Oh no, he won the Palme d'Or with Southland Tales, but I thought they got booed. That like got booed
Wait, he
out
won.
of the seat.
He won the Palme d'Or. Are you
Yeah, that's
sure?
what it said. Well, it said Cannes Film Festival 2006 Palme d'Or for Southland. Oh no, result nominated, did not win. Sorry. These were all nominations, no wins.
Right.
Independent Spirit Award, Best First Feature, Best First Screenplay, Most Promising Director, Grand Jury Prize, Sundance, all no wins.
Yep, but nothing since 2009. That's wild. That's been a while. Again,
That's
I
pretty
think he would have been. I would think he's such a unique voice that he could have kept writing. Sometimes they won't let you direct again, and that's the way it goes. But they'll definitely take your scripts.
Yeah, I don't think there was no way they would take a script, and now more than ever, I mean, you telling me that if Netflix, backs up a Brinks truck to his house and said, I'm going to give Richard Kelly a 10-episode series, that it's not going to be like appointment, streaming television
Don't know.
with the fever for this, or this, because this couldn't have been a life sentence of director's jail, right?
It really sounds like it.
It
I,
feels like it.
I don't know. Maybe he was difficult to work with. Who knows? But yeah, because I did watch the box and I found it uniquely terrible. It took
That's
if you remember that Twilight Zone episode, it just
I
sort
do,
of
yeah.
bastardized it into this crazy, just incomprehensible, just spaghetti knot of, cause and effect. Too much, I feel.
I remember wanting to see it, but also, and then I just never did.
Yeah, that's what most people did.
Did you watch both the director's cut and the original cut in the Dos Incredibles screening room?
No, I watched.
No.
I watched it on that TV you just brought over to the studio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Because I was just curious, because man, I feel like I would love to have a theatrical experience with this to really get the no distractions feeling.
yeah,
Because I feel like, man, this one, I feel like the more you're focused, the more you're going to be able to see, the more you're going to pull away. I mean, like you just named half a dozen things in here that I missed, but I mean, also it was just like I was home. There was things happening out and about. Like I wasn't like I was fully engrossed, and I knew I was just fascinated by this movie, and I was loving it. And I told you I was just like, man, I just can't believe how much I love this movie now. But I think even if I had just an uninterrupted by yourself in a theater, kind of like Donnie, just zeroed in on it, how much more that you'd pick up on this.
yeah. Or these work for me. A lined in headphone land on the treadmill, with headphones in, just watching it on an iPad. I know that's a lot different than the theatrical experience, but I find those you can get very zoned in.
That's what you need. You just need something that takes you out of this world. Even sign me up for the VR Donnie Darko experience.
Absolutely.
Like, like sign me up. I watched a little bit of that. I believe it was the Eli Roth. He wrote an AR movie that you're kind of in the crime scene, the horror movie as it's happening. So you're kind of walking around the house, you're exploring the house, or you can follow the main characters.
Hmm.
A Donnie, if they're looking for that, bring it over the top VR experience, man. Can you imagine exploring the world of Donnie Darko, like either following the characters but actually being in that world? How fully immersed you would be in that?
That would be wild.
I mean, because now you're talking about a primary universe, a tangent universe, but you're creating your own private universe, like a personal pizza, away from the regular universe that's real life. I mean, you're talking about multiverses again. You never
Multiverse.
multiverse. You never told me how did, or maybe you did tell me, like, how did you feel about this the first time you saw it?
I didn't like it. First
You
time I
just
saw it, I felt I didn't get it. I didn't get it at all, and I felt like, I mean, obviously the trailers looked cool, and it, whatever this was going to be felt like it was going to be great. But I felt like by the time I got to the end of the film, I was like, I don't know what happened, and it was not very exciting. It felt like the whole time it was building to something big, and we never got a big payoff. You know, so
right.
I didn't really like it. And then I watched it a few more times because it was just one of those films. People, even if you'd didn't like it, you'd want to see, or somebody else would want to revisit and watch. And I honestly, the just like you, this viewing on the last drive-in was probably the best viewing I've ever had. You know, I think years of perspective and sort of being able to understand film and filmmaking techniques and storytelling techniques better, like now, adds a lot. Where we weren't ready. I definitely wasn't ready for this film in 2001. No.
No, no, my the brain wasn't ready. Do you think also that it is possible, like you said, all your own personal experience and life experiences, and they say that the the sun's rays actually are slowly opening up parts of the DNA chain that are actually dormant, and that's why a lot of things are unlocking. All of that combined into one that are just giving us this movie 23 years later that all of a sudden, oh, I get it,
Yeah,
or you're starting to get it.
I think so. I think that that's definitely something, but it's just strange to me that Richard Kelly is just off the map. You know?
Yeah, I think because you and I both were, and probably multiple viewers were just like so moved by this that you expect when somebody kind of like knocks you off your feet with a film, you naturally think that it's kind of a something that they do a lot, or you expect more because clearly they hit it so high and hard out of the park that it broke the sound barrier, and people didn't even realize that it was not in the park, that they just lost the ball,
Yeah.
and now the ball is lost. Because I can tell you, we can end the stream on the where we started, of just like there was just a few movies that like completely disliked the first time and then just loved as time went on. Donnie Darko sits by itself for me as like the first time I didn't like it, and the second time I absolutely loved it. Like there wasn't a subtle up and to the right. It was just like 2001, seeing it in the theaters. I don't get it. I don't like it. I expected more. And then 23 years later, on the last drive-in with Joe Bob Briggs, you're like, I freaking love that movie, and I just like haven't stopped thinking about it. It's the first time that's ever happened. First viewing, not liking it. Second time, freaking loving it.
Yeah.
Man, it's just like what a cool for me, just to show what you already know, so we're preaching to the choir, is like the power of cinema to move you, to give you experiences that maybe you can never experience in real life, but kind of like a dream, when your brain doesn't know the difference between a dream and reality when you're dreaming, maybe there's just that part of our consciousness that when you're experiencing a movie, you get to experience all this danger, all this love, all these highs, all these lows, with not really much skin in the game. It's like really can be like such an immersive experience that you just never really want to go away, because I feel like there's power in that. There's power in cinema that, as people are talking about movies being dead, but then you have movies like this that, like, you don't want to lose that power to influence, humanity like that. Most of the time for the better, right? And meanwhile, you have all these little micro experiences that are influence us, but are they influencing humanity for the better or for the worst? For me, films have just been like such a defining tool in my entire life, and Donnie Darko kind of made me feel that again.
Yeah, I really enjoyed revisiting this one this like over the past few days. Makes me feel kind of dumb for not getting it 20 years ago. Should have known. I feel like I should have known. And I mean, obviously, lots of people have liked it, but I don't think, I don't know. I don't know what everybody else saw in it that they gravitated to. I mean, it's definitely a well-directed movie. It's stylish, and the soundtrack is great. And those are all things that'll keep you watching. But I just challenge anyone, if we could loop back to 2001, I challenge anyone to explain to me what this movie was trying to say in that moment.
I know. I would love to meet somebody who did get it that first time, because it would be a fascinating conversation, because you'd want to ask so many more questions. Because if we went from 1 + 1 = 2 to E = MC squared in the Donnie Darko universe, what do the people who understood E = MC squared in 2001, where are they at right now?
Right.
That's what I wanna talk about. Yeah.
If those people actually exist.
If they exist, I don't know. I like to think they do. I like to think that there's somebody out there that's kind of smiling and waiting for people to get it. The whole, when the student is ready, the teacher shall appear type thing.
Yeah.
So I'd like to think they're out there. But yeah, thanks to all the folks at the last drive-in for picking this movie and just kind of changing not only the game for their show, but just like giving us another bite of this dish that, like, come on, I think you're gonna like it.
Yeah.
And then you're like that meme that you're like, that was the film version of that.
Let's go ahead and give Richard Kelly another bite at the apple. Why not? Can he get another shot?
Yeah.
Can he get another shot? Like, I feel like it's time. It's been long enough. There's so many online streamers now. Surely, what's Netflix got? Netflix can throw him a movie budget.
Yeah, they got absolutely
Why not?
nothing to lose.
Yeah, they got nothing to lose.
I don't think they have any natural predators yet that are endangering them.
No, Netflix is Mufasa.
Yeah, there's no natural predators that'll stop it now. You might have outside forces that are like reality and pay cuts and stuff, but as far as like just like apples to apples and just like who's going to compete, I don't even, like I said, I don't think they even have the pedigree of movies. Like Apple Plus stuff is just like, it's not TV, it's HBO level.
Yeah.
Back in the So it's just like, but for whatever reason, like Netflix is just like, freaking Walmart or Home Depot is just like, whatever you need, we got it.
Right.
Don't go to those mom and pop stores that might be better. You'll find something you like.
We have everything. We have all kinds of movies and shows from all over the
Which
world.
completely unrelated. I had no idea that The Hitman was directed by Richard Linklater, but I guess that's another conversation we'll
Oh
talk
yeah, that's why I
about.
went to go see it.
I was like, that's we could talk about that on
You know, I'm
Wednesday.
not a
'Cause,
fan of Netflix films. I don't just go watch them randomly.
yeah, no, you're they're usually the most unforgettable films, if I remember correctly. So I'm looking forward to Wednesday hearing you talk about that.
Definitely. And
All right.
we'll definitely catch a screening of Bad Boys for Life. Bad Boys for Life? Is that what it's called?
Ride or Die.
Ride or Die.
Again, dude, we'll talk about the cinematic experience. I went and saw it, did a double feature of The Watchers and Ride or Die, and people were clapping during scenes of Bad Boys, and it got an ovation at the end, like a legit ovation, and not just one person, like multiple people. And I was watching people's faces, and they were popping during the movie, and I was just like, I was a little taken back because I'm not used to it.
Yeah.
Like this, like I remember this happening in Marvel's movies. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting conversation.
Yeah. I mean, why not? I mean, the only reason you wouldn't think that is because of the Will Smith slap incident. But, you know, I think most people are over it. Nobody cares, you know?
Oh yeah,
And
no, there's
people are going to come out to support their stars, you know? The people that they've always supported, they're not going to turn on them. And you know, there's a built-in audience, especially nowadays when it's like representation is big, and you've got a big action movie, big summer blockbuster with, you know, two African American leads. Boom, we're there for it. Let's do it.
yeah.
We don't need. There's not one black person in Furiosa. Did you know that?
I thought I couldn't tell because they were all just got crap on their face.
Yeah, well, yeah, maybe one of the War Boys was actually black, but
Well, JJ said people want to root for Will.
yeah, people
Maybe
want to root for Will. They know Jade is a heel.
Jada is a heel now. Cool. All right, man. I think we'll call it our wrap on House Show After Darko.
Yep. But we'll
We'll
be
be
back Wednesday.
Yeah, we will be back on Wednesday, back in studio. Talk about Bad Boys. I'd like to talk about Watchers. I don't think you need to go watch Watchers for me to talk about it, though.
I'm not a mark for Shyamalan.
Yeah, I did. I will say, and you'll have to cut me off because I won't hear when to end, but I will say it was directed really well. So hats off to his daughter. Like, it may have felt like the story may have felt paint by numbers, but it was directed really well. And she did a great job of creating a vibe. That was a Shyamalan vibe, but also her own vibe in a way.
But it's the Shyamalan family vibe.
Yes, the Shyamalan family vibe. So totally did feel that. So yeah, we'll talk about all this on Wednesday. So thanks, JJ. Thanks for everyone watching. And I don't know how to end it with Darko other than just doing, are you real?
Why are you wearing that stupid bunny suit?
Yeah.
All right. See you Wednesday.
See ya.